Morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Bell. I am the board co-president of the Westchester Community Center. Whether it's your first time here or your 1,000th time here, we'd like to welcome you to this, our humble abode. This is our home away from home. This is a place that has been standing for nearly 108 years. Its mission is to provide civics, arts, recreation, and education opportunities to underserved communities in this area, in this neighborhood, and beyond in the greater Westchester area. I'd like to recognize, I don't see her, but our board co-chair, Darlene Jenkins-Walls. She's in the audience, and on behalf of the board of directors and the Westchester Community Center staff, welcome to the center. And I'd like to kick things off by introducing the governor.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you, and I want to offer just a few opening comments, and then I intend to do a lot of listening today, and I want to hear from all of you. I want to begin by recognizing some of our elected leaders who are here, including the gentleman to my right, our Attorney General, Dave Sunday. Dave will have some comments. General Sunday, I'll have some comments when I'm done. I know we're also joined by Representative Pielli, your local state representative, who's been a leader on these issues in the Capitol. I want to thank you for that. My point person is my Secretary of Policy, Secretary Hussein, who is here, and I know he'll have some things to offer. I do want to just say a quick thank you to Mayor DeBaptiste from here in Westchester. I appreciate you, Mayor, for all your work. Mayors are where the rubber meets the road, so thank you very much for your leadership. And, of course, most importantly, to the students and the school administrators and other leaders who are here. Look, the mental health of our students, of our young people, has been a top priority of mine since I served as Attorney General in my previous life. I come to this issue as both your governor and also as a father of four. I know the challenges that young people are facing, and I saw the data back that up back when I was serving as Attorney General, when we launched something called Safe to Say, which is an app you have on your phone. The idea behind it, actually, at the time, was to give young people the opportunity to report in if, perhaps, God forbid, something bad was going to happen at their school. Someone was going to bring a weapon or someone was going to harm someone else. And the reality is the app ended up not being used so much for that, I guess in many ways, thank God, but it was really used instead for students to cry out for help, to say they needed more counselors, that their friends needed help, that someone was contemplating harming themselves. It was a real wake-up call, and as a result of that, years later as governor, I made clear that we were going to fund student mental health really aggressively. So far, during my time as your governor, we've invested $300 million into our schools just so they could hire mental health counselors and provide other mental health resources. Thank you for the clapping. Over 800 of our schools across Pennsylvania have done that. The challenge we see is that there are emerging challenges to student mental health all the time. I know we're going to talk about some of them today. Let me focus on just one, these so-called AI companions, which you have the ability to engage with directly, almost as though they're human-like, right? And we see more and more students kind of retreating into loneliness, engaging with these chatbots or these companions in a way that we think also creates some serious risks. We also think that these AI companions are not operating, in my view, not operating or at least pressing the bounds of the law here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We'll have more to say about that, I think, in the future. But I can tell you that this is an area that is unregulated, and it's really dangerous. I've called on the General Assembly, Representative Pielli's one of our leaders in this, to require these apps to have age verification and parental consent, to have constant reminders that the thing you're typing to and talking with is not actually a human. I know it sounds crazy, but having those pop-ups so that you know what we're dealing with is not real. Forcing these companies, if they see the suggestion that a young person might cause themselves harm, to report that. And of course, restricting their ability to provide sexually explicit material to our children. We think those are four common sense reforms. In fact, it's garnered broad bipartisan support in the legislature. In addition to that, my administration said that we're going to take 3 additional steps when it comes to that. One, we've launched a new AI digital literacy toolkit for parents, for students, and teachers, We did it just last month. Already 2,000 people have checked in on it and utilized that toolkit. I want to encourage all of you to take a moment when this is done, take a look at the toolkit. Tell us what's missing. Tell us what else we need to add in there. It's at pa.gov/AI safety. Second, I asked the Department of State, under my authority, to create a task force to investigate all of these different companion bots to determine whether or not they're violating our laws in Pennsylvania. Let me be more specific and explain. We actually, in the office, downloaded one of these AI companions. And we plugged in very quickly, hey, I'm struggling. I need help. I'm considering harming myself. Within 5 minutes of going back and forth with this AI companion bot, the companion bot represented itself as a licensed medical professional in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and was there to help. All licensing goes through what we call the Department of State within my administration. So if you're lying about that, if you're not following the rules, we're going to take steps to shut you down. The third thing we're doing is we're coordinating with our Attorney General, with General Sunday, to make sure that these different AI technologies follow the law, and if they don't, they're going to be held to account. The General has a great track record on consumer protection, and he's got a wonderful team working on this. I'll let him speak to the work that they're doing there. But I think it's important to note the coordination between our two offices. The things we control, like licensing, for example, the things he controls, like consumer protection, we sort of believe 1 + 1 can equal 3 here, that if we work together, we can really stand up a strong response to protect our students and protect our young people. Look, that's just one area that I'm concerned with. We came today to listen. We want to understand what you see as the challenges. I know this school district had some unique challenges, and I am grateful for the bravery of the students who are here and for the parents. Again, speaking more as a parent and as a governor, I can imagine just how challenging that was for your child. And so I know that this is a district that has some, unfortunately, sophistication in this space. And so we want to learn from you about what you saw there and how we can address that going forward and scale that up across Pennsylvania. I'm here because this community really has its act together, understands these issues, and knows that we need to do more. And we're hoping what we learn in this conversation we can use to inform the work we do all across Pennsylvania. So let me stop there. I want to turn it over to General Sunday for some opening remarks, and then we'll get into our conversation. General?
All right, so good morning, everyone. It is an absolute honor to be here. Thank you to the governor for setting this up today. This is beyond wonderful. So by way of background, I am a career prosecutor. I was a DA before I was the AG, and I spent most of my career in a courtroom fighting for community safety. And through the entirety of my career, fighting crimes that occur that you see every day in front of you, I never thought that I would be in a place where we would be fighting crimes and protecting victims in a way that is so sophisticated and so insidious that it's taking place in people's homes and bedrooms that we just can't see. And so because of that, two things. Number one, my office, the Attorney General's office, this is an absolute priority for us. And when I say this, what I mean is public safety and the safety of children. And so there are a couple of different things that we can do with regard to that. One of them is the path when there's a crime. So if there's a crime that occurs, we have and will charge and prosecute people for committing those crimes. The second part of this is the consumer protection sort of path that the governor mentioned. And as a former AG, he understands like all the different, what that means and what all we can do. And up to this point, and I think all of us collectively have pride in the fact that Pennsylvania has really been a leader, and we will continue to fight to be a leader in all of these issues. And in particular, when you look across the country, I'm really proud of the fact that we've led the way with huge bipartisan coalitions all throughout the country to reach out to these companies and tell them, we demand that you change your tune. We demand that you make sure the product is safe before it goes out, because you can't fix things, you can't put guardrails up after something bad happened. And you have to take ownership in this process. I'm the AG, I'm I'm a prosecutor, and I'm a dad. I have a young son who's 11, and I'm very, very scared of the world he has to grow up in. And I will leave you with this. We separately have started what we call a Teen Talk series because, and I'm sure the governor would probably agree with this, that, we as adults, like, we sometimes think like we have things figured out. And I've learned very quickly that, especially with this issue, like, it's not even close. I mean, I didn't have iPhones when I was a kid. iPhones didn't exist. I didn't have internet in high school or anything like that. And so hearing from the people that are the most affected puts us in the strongest position to understand the most effective way to handle it. So that being said, I'm so grateful that the governor put this together. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm here to listen and understand so that as we move forward, our collaboration will result in the best outcome. So thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you very much, General. All right. This is the most important part of the day where we get to hear from you. No rules other than just be respectful to one another. Don't talk over one another. And the first time you speak, if you could just introduce yourself with as much or as little detail as you would like, just let us know who you are. So with that, I think the most helpful thing to us would be a sense of what you're seeing out there, what you see as the big challenges. Don't worry about if it's the Attorney General, the governor, or what branch of government. Tell us what you'd like to see change. We'll sort out the details on the back end, but just would love to hear from you. So the floor is yours. It's open.
I'm happy to start. I'm
Great.
Audrey Greenberg, Radnor resident. I also am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur in our state, and have started many successful companies here, and I'm very pleased with the infrastructure that exists. I also recognize that Pennsylvania is a leader in criminalizing deepfake AI, CSAM. Not just a leader in our country, but a leader globally. So thank you for your leadership in that area. Unfortunately, my daughter was a victim of this particular crime. And what we saw was that the institutions, including the police and primarily the school, did not know how to respond to this. We were re-victimized by the response by the school. And know that our kids spend, as you know, you have 4 kids, 75% of their waking hours in school. That's where their life is, including sports and activities. So having a protocol for the schools when something like this happens again, which we all know it will happen again, what specifically should the administration do? How should they respond? How do they work with police? What tools does a police department have for evidence preservation? These apps, these Notify apps, are based overseas. The data gets deleted very quickly. You have 30 days or less, if ever, to get the information. And so just understanding the proper protocols and procedures. And again, thank you for the AI toolkit. Went through it in detail. And there is a good reporting mechanism with regard to the chatbots.
Right.
But I've given feedback, and I know you guys are responding, but there isn't really a centralized reporting mechanism for the deepfake pornography. So it would be good to have that as well so that we have the proper tools. And again, thank you.
You're very welcome. Do you feel as though, as a result of the experience, the awful experience at Radnor, other school districts kind of took note, maybe learned from that? Or do you feel like, us coordinating, say, the PD, Pennsylvania Department of Education, OAG, some other resources to inform the schools as to what happened, maybe use that as a case study, and then here are the steps you got to take? Or do you feel as though the school districts have done that?
Yeah, well, I think in the cases of Lancaster Country Day and Council Rock, there's various degrees of how people have responded. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, the lessons learned are negative. And so if we could take those negative lessons learned in terms of turnaround time, reporting mechanism, victim-centered response, having some sympathy and empathy for these victims instead of telling them, oh, you get to leave class early and sit by yourself at lunch. Don't isolate the victim. So anyway, having a victim-centered response. But yes, I do think we can use it as a case study so long as we realize what the mistakes were made and what the proper response should be.
Great. We will follow up on that.
Okay.
Can I know we were just going to leave it open. Any students want to jump in on that with your perspective on the issue? Go ahead, Hannah.
I'm Hannah. I'm a junior at Westchester East. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is that where there's so much talk about digital literacy and AI and deepfakes and things like that happen, but I feel like a lot of the education isn't actually coming to the students. I see it a lot of the time where it's kind of just like leaving it open to figure it out because we've been raised in such a digital world, but our opinions are being formed around these things and our ideas are being formed around these things. And it's not just the teachers anymore, it's everything we consume. And a lot of people just don't know how to approach it. Like just like general digital literacy, like the toolkit I opened it and I think it's really good. But I think there needs to be something that actually like lays that out for students on how to approach digital literacy.
What would you like to see? If I ask you to write a student-only section of this toolkit, which, by the way, I may ask you to be careful, you've just volunteered, what kind of things would you put in there? What is lacking? What's missing? What would you kind of like to know?
I would love to see more on how to approach social media and how to look for AI in our everyday lives, look for biases, just approach the environment that we've been raised in, and just like how, like when you open social media, what should go through your mind when you're consuming something, things like that, just like no blind consumption.
I think that's really smart. Our kids will come to us a lot, to me and Lori, my wife Lori, and like want to argue a point with us. Sometimes my boys like to just be the opposite of whatever I think just to see how I'll react. But the first question we'll ask them is, how do you know that's true? I think that's sort of a foundational thing. Not do they have this opinion or that opinion, but how do we know it's true? And what I'm hearing you say is we've got to figure those kinds of things out first, the basics, before we get into expressing opinions on things.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've done a lot of research, like it really interests me with the whole like truth thing, finding truth in the environment we've been raised in, because I think a lot of teens are really lost.
Yeah.
And that also leads to the loneliness and the overwhelmingness. And then like with deepfakes, like how harmful that can be, and looking in so many forms of media, and just like how like having parents who test you, like my parents always did that, like where'd you get that from? Like where is this claim coming from? But just you can't just like say it.
Yeah. I want to bring the other students in, see if you agree or disagree with Hannah, but just a quick question for you, but no right or wrong answer here. If something's happening in the world, some news is occurring that you care about and you want to learn more about, you grab your phone, and where do you go to get that information first?
I think based on experience with seeing like things that are fake, I usually go to news sources first.
What's a news source?
I really like the Wall Street Journal and like things like that, but I'm not really like, I wouldn't say that's average. Like I wouldn't say I'm like, but I think a lot of people look at social media.
Yeah, they do. Okay. And the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. Anybody from the Wall Street Journal here? Yeah. Melwert was hoping you'd say KYW. Any other students want to jump in on that point? Anybody disagree with Hannah? Agree with Hannah? Good. Good, Julian. You seem like you want to say something. Just talk in the mic so everybody can hear you guys.
I'm Julian. I'm a sophomore at Henderson High School, down the street. I agree with everything she's saying. Like, you go on like social media apps like Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, and you see a lot of artificial intelligence on there. And some people don't even know if it's real or not. And so you can put something in their head like, oh, I saw this on TikTok. Is it real? Is it not real?
Yeah.
But I don't know what else to say.
No, it's okay. It's true. One of my sons the other day was like, Dad, you look like an idiot in this picture. I'm like, what are you looking at? And he showed me. I'm like, that's not me. That was AI. So, no, I know I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And there's like fake pictures out there, and that really ruins somebody's life.
Yeah.
You know, like a fake picture, like what happened with her. You don't understand how much that person goes through.
Yeah.
And someone's trying to be like funny, which it's really not funny.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Can I ask you a question? The AG mentioned he's a prosecutor, right? So his job is to enforce the law. If someone breaks the law, if it's a crime, sanction them. Sometimes they go to jail, they pay a fine, right? Lots of different things. What do you think the punishment should be? What should the sanction be if someone makes a deep fake and really, goes beyond embarrassing someone, but causes them real harm and real stress and real emotional challenges. What do you think?
I think they should be taken to court and with all their evidence, see what happens. There was an instance at my school where the senior, he got put on probation now, but he was like buying nude pictures from girls at our school for large amounts of money and selling them online, and he got caught. And he's on probation. He also got caught doing it in Pittsburgh. So I think they should be taken to court, and jail time should be enforced. There's no reason you should be doing that, and you know it's a struggle for people like that. So I don't understand why they shouldn't be put in jail or on probation or house arrest or anything like that.
Yeah. Others? Good.
My name's Adam Dorfman from Radnor Township. And thank everybody again for putting this together. I mean, our family got hit with this, and quite frankly, I don't think we even understood what was happening when it first all went down. So we understand now how important it is and appreciate everybody putting this together. I think, you know, what Audrey brought up and talked about the schools a little bit, I think another key part of this that Hannah was going in that direction is sort of the unknown of, you know, as a parent, you know, and Attorney General Sunday mentioned this, that we didn't grow up with iPhones. A lot of stuff on the internet now was not there when we were all growing up. And quite frankly, as parents, we don't know how it works as well as some of these kids do. And the kids are starting to understand this technology much faster than I think we'll ever be able to do. And I think a lot of the education really starts with the parents as well as on the school side of things, where, you know, from our experience and what we're understanding about Discord and some of these other things on the internet that really are controlling and taking a hold of a lot of these deep fakes, I think that's a big education piece that parents really need to understand and dive a little bit deeper into.
Yeah. I know it's a different school district, but if Dr. Bell at Harrington offered, you know, parents, you know, parent night or what have you, back to school night, but focused on parents' education on this kind of stuff, is that something you think other parents would go to?
So I think there would. I think what also goes into play is that understanding the criminal aspect of this and what could happen to a child or a kid if they do get themselves caught in this. Because one thing that I also don't think that some of the kids in the area that we're from are understanding is the implications to this. What can happen if, in fact, you get caught doing this and the criminal implications?
Do you think kids don't know?
I don't think they understand it.
What do you think, Hannah? You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I don't think anyone really understands, like, it's really hard when you're, like, posting something or, like, you have such, like, an immediate feedback to, like, understand how far that could go.
Yeah. What do you guys think? You think? Go ahead.
Hi. Hi. My name is Divya.
Just talking.
Hi, my name is Divya, and I'm a senior at Conestoga High School. And I think, yeah, a lot of the students don't really know, like, the consequences of using AI. Like, there's always, like, good ways to use it. Like, some people use it to study and, like, you know, make flashcards and study effectively. But there should be, like, some kind of boundaries made on, like, you know, what is something really wrong, and they need to know the consequences in order to, like, you know, not cross the boundaries. So I feel like there should be some kind of, like, a small, you know, training or some kind of thing in the school, like, you know how they have, like, talks in school?
Yeah.
So maybe if they have, like, one of those, like, talks in school where they talk about it and, you know, educate people on it.
What do you think if, I'm going to bring the AG here in on this, what if the Attorney General showed up? Seriously, and said, hey, you go post that kind of stuff, this is what the law says. I can prosecute you. You can go to jail. You can get in a lot of trouble for that. Do you think that would cause students to think about it differently, or they just kind of blow it off?
I think they will listen to that more. Like, I feel like the more, like, evidence and credibility someone would have, like, obviously, Attorney General would have a lot of credibility, so I think that would definitely, like, help with that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add on that? You want to show up at the school?
No, just, I mean, I have done that, but I think that especially now, I mean, there are cases that are ongoing that we're seeing that are being publicly reported on. We had some juveniles recently that pled guilty to like over 50 felony counts for doing a situation sort of behavior like this. And I think that when people see that happening, that shows them that this isn't just a conversation that it's very, very real. And those are real life, real world consequences that will impact someone's entire future. And so I think that, when people see that in the media and they understand that that really does happen, I think that's important.
Dr. Harrison, you were trying to jump in there.
Sure thing. Roger Harrison. I am within the Division of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at CHOP. I'm a psychologist, girl dad, 3. And I appreciate listening to both the students and the parents, and I think it speaks to the complexity of the issue where, from where I sit, there are these situations where we have a number, and fortunately right now it's still a smaller number of kids who really experience great harm, like CSAM, and exposing personal information put online that's not AI generated, but people's actual private information. And then what I see from a broader mental health perspective is more and more young people who are spending an extremely long amount of time with these companion bots. And kids coming in, you mentioned the thing about misrepresentation as a licensed clinician, who are coming in to see a member of our team who they've been in therapy, but it's not a human being. They've been in therapy with a chat bot, and this could have been for months. And I think about the fundamental need that we have as human beings, particularly as we're going for real human social connection, and how with no regulation, I'm seeing young people they're up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, just engaging with the chatbot, and how this is actually robbing young people of opportunities for real, necessary social human connection. And also the fact that they don't have a way, and they're not supposed to have a way. These are young people of discriminating or judging like what is good information and what is not good information, what is helpful, what is an AI hallucination. Once you're in this relationship, believing it feels like I'm having an authentic connection with a non-human. And my big concern is for young people who aren't supposed to have the brain maturity or the kind of judgment to determine whether or not this is good or not good, or true or not true, and then the complete lack of safeguards that gets them lost down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. I want to follow up on that and then bring Representative Pielli in here. Dr. Harrison made a point about the amount of time on their phones and losing that sort of interaction, talking to somebody, looking, we got to put this thing down. I am in support of what we call a bell-to-bell ban, which means when you get to school, your phone has to go in the locker, in a cubby, in a book bag, whatever it is, backpack, whatever it is, and you get it at the final bell, right? My kids hate me for this, but I do think it makes sense, and I'm curious what your reaction is to that. Would that create more of an opportunity to interact and have conversations? Do you think I'm wrong? You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Go ahead. And I'm sorry, you should turn your name tag around because we got the blank side. Yeah. There you go. Andrew. Just Andrew. You're like Madonna or Beyonce there. Yeah, all right. Go ahead.
My name is Andrew Schuneman. I'm a junior at Devon Prep. And I for sure think the phone policy is a great way for to develop social connection. For example, you're not gonna have kids on their phone at lunch, just texting away a chatbot, like Dr. Harrison said. You're really developing that human connection. You're talking to your friends, you're giving them a 5 and 2, a handshake with the eye connection. And also it's really impactful in class. When you're in class and you're just sitting on your phone, you're just scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, you're not listening to your teachers. However, when you don't have your phone, obviously you're you don't have anything to do in class, you might as well listen to your teachers.
Yeah. Anybody agree or disagree with Andrew?
I definitely agree with that. I think it's I definitely agree with Andrew on the fact that we should, have that social connection in school, because right now I feel like when I try to talk with my friends, sometimes they're on their phones, and it's a bit distracting because I feel like we're kind of missing out on a really important part of like our childhoods, that talking with friends, understanding how they're doing, but it's kind of frustrating when you're trying to have a conversation with someone and they have like an AirPod in, and it's like, are you listening to me? Like, are you, understanding like what I'm trying to tell you? And I think putting the phones away would also help us like understand each other better and just be in the moment. We actually, like the importance of being in the moment is also something that I've kind of been thinking about and reflecting on myself as well, because sometimes I catch myself on my phone and I'm like, I feel like I could be, doing something else, talking to my brother or trying to use my time more wisely other than just, scrolling on social media, which really isn't like trying to benefit me anymore. So, yeah.
But you use a computer in class to take notes?
So some classes, our teachers prefer that we take handwritten notes because they think that it will help us like understand the information clearer. But some classes, like our tech classes, we do take notes on our computer.
And you don't find that to be distracting?
Not particularly. Sometimes it is because, I think we've all had a moment where, we go onto a different browser that we have open and then we go down that rabbit hole of finding something interesting and going down. Maybe, having like a browser that maybe you can't go onto other browsers when you're studying would maybe be helpful. And it is something that like I think our schools have. It's called like lockdown browser. So when you're taking like an essay or something, you're not allowed to go onto other browsers. So it makes it easier to like be in one place at that moment.
I want to bring in Representative Pielli, but here's the thing. In a few weeks, he's going to have to vote on this bill. Okay? You're his constituents. Raise your hand if you want him to vote yes. Yes for the bell-to-bell ban. Come on, you got to vote. All right. Good, you all vote. All right, here's how we're going to do this.
My kids aren't going to like it.
Right. I've already dealt with that. Sue, I'm going to ask you to vote yes on the bell-to-bell ban or no on the bell-to-bell ban, and he's going to have to be your voice on this. So who's voting yes? Okay. Andrew, come on, my man.
I said I agree, but like I can't.
So there's peer pressure here?
I think he's saying he has to also be a representative of his peers. And
all right. So who's actually voting no? Okay. Andrew, dude, come on. You were for it, now you're like for against it, right?
She was for it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why are we a no on this?
Well, actually, at Henderson, we already have a ban on cell phones, so you're not allowed to have your cell phone out, and you have 3 strikes. So first strike, they take it away. Second strike, your parent picks it up, and third strike, you can get suspended. And then I go to barber school at TCHS in Brandywine, and we're not allowed. We lock our phones up in a box, and so the last 15 minutes of class, if you locked it up the whole time, you're allowed to use it. But I don't think we should have this ban. We already have it, so I'm already experiencing it, but I don't want anyone else to experience it. No.
Got it. So you're okay with it. No, this is important. You're okay with it kind of in your school, right? You just don't think it should be a state policy.
Everybody else got to eat.
Everybody else got to eat.
They got to eat, not us.
Okay. All right, but you've benefited from it.
I think so. At the start of the year, some kids, like, their social batteries were, like, worn off. Like, they wouldn't want to talk to anybody because it's like in person now. You're sitting at home during the summer doing nothing. But I think it's good because you can communicate instead of texting on Snapchat or Instagram and being face to face with somebody, and I think that feels good.
Did my son Ruben get to you on this? Good. You got a tough job now, Chris.
It is tough. We've been hearing different concerns about limiting access to communication also. There's different variations out there, what we're discussing. I think we could all agree, though, school is for learning, and it's not for being on the phone. So that's the fundamental difference. And I've heard a lot of things about communication. AI is going to be probably the biggest cataclysmic change in humanity. It goes beyond Gutenberg's printing press. How we're going to communicate, how we're going to medically, business-wise, jobs. One thing we cannot do is lose our humanity over this. And that's sort of a common denominator. And education in the schools is the primary focus. The health, safety, and welfare of our children, our greatest resource. No one's going to argue about that. Whether or not it's bell to bell, whether or not you could take your phone out on recess, there's different ideas out there. Some kids have medical needs where, it might really be a good idea that they have that phone on them. Gosh forbid, there's a problem. Some kids are volunteer emergency first responders. They are. I know we have a couple of them here in our school district, and, they need to have their phone to respond to the call. So, we could do things within reason, but we do have to set a groundwork because a lot of this AI stuff, it's almost like the horse leaving the barn already, and we're trying to catch up. The governor laid out some great initiatives in the beginning. He mentioned them again during the budget process. We've tried to meet that challenge. Recently, the Senate just passed SB 1090. Pretty much unanimously, 49-1. Our bill, Representative McNeil and myself introduced a bill that's sort of a companion bill, but it goes a step further. We've heard some discussion about AI companions and how dangerous they are, and some of the incidents where they're actually, egging students or egging minors on to do self-harm. Some really bad stuff out there. So our bill goes a step further. We have an age verification process that the governor requested we put in legislation. Once we find out that that age verification shows you're a minor, there is no AI companion. That's it. They just can't get it. If there's inkling of any self-harm, they're directed towards proper resources to address their current needs. So these are things that we have to work together on. I love hearing from the younger folks because, to the point, it's almost like you're speaking a different language. I remember the days when I was traveling, I had to get out a map and look, and I would highlight where we were going. That's where a lot of us are coming from. And so for us to understand, I think it's a challenge for us as adults that we have to take responsibility and not throw it on you. And we have to set up some of these guardrails. With any new innovation, when cars came out, we didn't have any laws. If you look at Title 75, which has to deal with automobiles, it's hundreds of pages thick. So we're just starting, but I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the youth to teach us in so many ways.
I appreciate it. All right, so the representative staked his ground. Audrey, Morgan, pardon me, you were big time for this. Audrey was against it. I'm just curious, when you raised your hand, why you did and
for
how you
banning cell phones.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that I ask my kids their opinions and their thoughts, but I think that we have to, sorry, I have to move this because I can't rotate. If we wait for the kids to beg us to take it away, I think it's too late. And so we have to be the adults and put guardrails in and kind of make these decisions with their input, but also in the best interest of their brains are developing. They did not grow up with this. They don't know the long-term effects of it.
Yeah.
We do as adults. So I do think that there are addiction to iPhones. So there are kids who are really going to have a very hard time letting go of their phones. But I think our teachers are begging for this. I know as a parent, it's exhausting trying to, put your phone away, put your phone away, put your phone away. I can't imagine a teacher trying to manage an entire classroom of that and that level of distraction. I don't think it's the teacher's job to be policing technology either. I want them to be focused on teaching our kids. So yeah, I know that my kids will not be happy with my vote, but I do think it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Corey Bell, I've been a school counselor for 20 years, and the district I work in currently implemented an off and away policy. They did their research, and this is what they came up with. Either your devices are in your bag or in a storage caddy in the beginning, in the front of the class, and then they pick it up after the class is over. So that's essentially the bell-to-bell schedule that the governor's talking about. I'd say there's a lot of pushback at first from the students, but we've seen like a decline in stress and anxiety in the classroom. They're able to focus more. And I think what was met with a lot of opposition in the beginning is it's come around as like, this is a good thing for us. I can focus on class now. I'm doing better. And I didn't want it, but I'm glad it's in place now.
Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Yep, Hannah, and then Secretary Saint.
I think I'm with Julie, and we're in the same school district, and we have like the bell-to-bell. They just don't take our phones. I think that's my biggest concern is I kind of view my phone as safety. Yeah. It's not even like needing to be on it. I just like having it on me. It brings like a level of I have a little bit more responsibility over my safety. I know I've talked to my friends about this a lot, but like I have a teacher who you have to put your phone up when you go to the bathroom, and no one goes to the bathroom in that class because, well, but it's like partially because they want to be on their phone, but also because like there's a level, like I live in a like gray area. Like it's not like anything happens a whole lot, but like in the horrible chance that it were, my phone's up there and I have no way to reach anyone. So I think that's my biggest concern is like if I can't access my phone, like that's like a level of concern for me.
Yeah, I think that's really unfortunate that you have to think about that, but I think that's a really fair response. Yeah. One of our sons said the same thing to me. So if you were offering an amendment to Representative Pielli's bill, how would you, what would you write in that? What would you think would allow you to not have the distraction, but still feel like you had, you know, some safety and some control?
I think there needs to be some way to empower teachers so that when they say put your phone away, it has authority. I think there needs to be a level of punishment where like if you're on your phone, like you are punished. But I think taking like the phones themselves away, like instead of just the distraction of it, is like that's where I can't agree with the phone bill.
Yeah, so I think right now, no one, I'm certainly not for taking your phone, but it would say, it's got to be in one of those little cubby things in your locker, in your book bag. You're suggesting, no, it should be allowed to be on your person because that allows you to feel safer. But you agree with the idea. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. You agree with the idea, though, it's got to like stay in your pocket or stay in your purse so it doesn't come out.
Definitely.
Is that your view?
Yeah, like I fully agree it's a distraction in the classroom, but there's a level of safety that I can't agree.
Yeah. Rep, would you accept that amendment?
Yeah, I think it's good because it's going to teach responsibility like so many other things that we have, rules and regulations that you have to abide by. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that at all.
Okay. Thanks, Henry. We're making laws here. This is great. All right.
I'll jump in. I'm so sorry. As you were speaking, Hannah, my heart went out because I've heard that from so many young people that I work with, that part of the reason I like to have my phone is that we have really normalized a culture where young people are going into school buildings with a lot of fear for their safety.
Yeah.
And I know we're here having a conversation about AI, but you can see how it is all intertwined with technology and the role of social media. And the fact that a big driver of kind of like this mental health, like unwellness for young people is that we've kind of just normalized living in a society where I don't know that I'm going to be safe when I'm in school. And yeah, my heart went out as you were speaking that because you're not alone in that sentiment. But this is where we are. And it is a big part, I think, of the driver for young people beyond I want, constant access to TikTok and Instagram. I don't feel safe. And my phone helps me to feel safe when I'm in school. And that's, I don't know how we move beyond that point.
Yeah, if I can just
Please.
chime in.
Yeah.
I'm here's a mom of 4, so I'm incredibly impressed that you can do your job as a father of 4. But this is also deeply personal for us. Our daughter was also one of the victims of AI deepfakes of one of her classmates. So while I think that you have very valid points, and it does break my heart to hear that kids feel that need for that safety, and I don't want to take away that feeling. It is also, phones can also be used as weapons. So there are kids in school that can take pictures of other people without their knowledge, can upskirts, things like that. So while it is a sense of security for some students, and in some moments it is, but it can also be used as a weapon to cause harm that, kids aren't participating in, or you don't even know that someone is taking that picture or recording you or videotaping you. So having the phones in school also, I feel like, contributes to harm that can spread immediately. So somebody can take a picture and within minutes, these things are happening. We've lived it. These apps, not just the educational ones, the ChatGPTs, the ones that you're typing into for questions. There are specific apps that are just for entertainment and just designed for pornography that have no safeguards in place. Kids are downloading them and the schools just have this very outdated way of thinking about sharing and files, that like they're looking for some zip disk, or that it's something that's saved. The apps now are designed to protect their creators. So as these people are creating these images that are fake and sexualized and possibly pornographic, they're just holding up their phone and showing kids. So like if it's in school, you know, that's where it's being shared because they have access to that many kids, and that's how quickly it can spread without having to text it or email it or leave like a paper trail. So it's just this, for us as parents, it was this eye-opening and just gutting moment to realize how this is happening and how different it is than when we were growing up, right? There's a VHS, somebody recorded it, somebody has it. It's just a totally different way of thinking that our school administrators need to be trained on, our school boards need to be trained on. I mean, having policies in place is essential, but if we don't enforce those policies, and if kids aren't held accountable and offenders aren't held accountable, then what message are we sending to all of these kids?
Can I drill down on that for a moment? And I'm so sorry this happened to your daughter.
Thank you.
And just as a dad, I'm just so sorry. And if this is too personal, you don't have to answer it, but at the moment you learn this happened, I imagine as a dad, I would feel like, oh my gosh, what do I do here, right? Who do I call? Where do I go? Do I call a prosecutor? Or do I call a therapist? Like, who do I call? And I'm curious how you process those immediate moments and what you wish you knew then, that we might be able to sort of stand up in a way that empowers parents should they unfortunately have to go through what you did.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for that question. You're in this whole process between school and our experience with local law enforcement. No one has asked us that. So I think it's an incredibly important question and conversation to have so that we can learn from these mistakes and learn from these new events. As a mom, when I first learned about this, I almost dismissed it. I was just like, go do your homework. You know, our daughter was told that there was a boy at school who was making these images and purchasing the app and spending money and sharing these, and she knew all of her friends told her about it. She found out about it at school. So we were kind of dizzy in the moment of, wait, like what happened? And tell me exactly what you know and tell me exactly how you found out. So we were kind of consumed by the trauma of trying to navigate like the trauma that she was going through and the emotional, and then trying to figure out the legalities of it, right? Like these are kids, these are other kids, these are our friends, there are other children involved. We didn't know where to go. Thankfully, someone had told us, because there were multiple other victims, that the Safe to Say line had been activated, and so that there had been multiple reports to the Safe to Say line. Well, I didn't know what the Safe to Say line was, so we knew like in concept what it was, but I didn't know what does that trigger, what happens after that's reported. Are we gonna get a call? Is our daughter gonna get called down to the principal? What are the next steps? So we reached out to the school, and that was our first inkling, like, okay, this is where she heard about it, they're talking about it, this is where it was being shared, it was being offered. So that was our first step. And looking back, I wish we had contacted the police right away. I think the timing of these crimes is essential. We also were kind of met with dismissal. I mean, I'll never forget as a mom sitting in the school hearing, you know, that this was nonsense and that there's really nothing they can do. So I felt like we did kind of waste time looking back, having those conversations, and we should have just gone directly to the police. I think that as parents, having clear pathways of reporting, like exactly what you said, like who do you call, when do you call them, what do you do? Do I need to save her phone? Does she take it to school and I have no idea what's happening? Do we delete everything? Like what do we do with this information, especially when there's other children involved? Do I call their parents? Like we just had no idea. So I felt like we were kind of paralyzed in the moment. And now looking back, I definitely would do a lot of things differently, or wish we had had the resources to do things differently.
That's super helpful. We're going to follow up with you because I think this is something we need on our toolkit. And by the way, we may need to actively work with our school districts to sort of empower them with hey, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd like to follow up with you on that.
Sure.
And how we best do that. And again, if you don't want to answer this, it's okay, but while you're dealing with the sort of legality of it and the process of it, you've got a kid who's upset, right? So do you, I mean, again, as a dad, I don't know that I would know what to say. Where did you go for help on that? Like, who do you call?
So I had a great relationship with one of the counselors from elementary school, and I have 4 kids. My youngest is an 8-month-old, so he's out of the picture.
Yeah.
I have a freshman and a middle schooler and an elementary schooler. So we actually
Okay.
have somebody in each school.
Yeah. We did that. We spread our 4 out. Too. Yeah. We should have
In theory,
talked.
it's great,
Yeah, in
but
theory,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
good
yeah.
idea. Yeah.
But I didn't know who to reach out to, so I reached out to the person who I had the closest relationship with, and I just said, you know, how do I talk to my kids? How do I talk to my 10-year-old? How do I talk to my 12-year-old? What do I do with the 14-year-old? So there were different levels of conversation, different things that we wanted to share and talk about with them. And so the school counselor at the elementary school level was incredibly helpful and gave us outside resources for sexual trauma counselors and things like that to help guide us as parents. Like, I just needed to know how do we talk about this?
Yeah.
So that was really helpful.
And if you were thinking about, hey, I got to alert law enforcement, are you thinking, I got to call the police chief, I got my local police chief, I've got to call the attorney general, I've got to call the DA, or do you kind of not even know who those folks are to call? Like, what are you thinking?
We had no idea. Thankfully, our kids have never been involved in anything criminal yet. So that was really, we didn't know who to call or what to do. We didn't have an attorney, anything like that. We went to the school, and the school basically told us we have to call the police. So if you want to do anything, you have to call the police. And we were confused because I thought, well, this is like child pornography, and doesn't the school have a
Emanating from the
responsibility
school,
to do something?
right.
Like, I didn't want to be the driving force. I wanted to go home and take care of my kids. So that was extremely overwhelming and impactful to our entire family to feel the time that it took us to figure that out while also trying to take care of them.
Yeah. Oh, and the general had a quick question for you.
Well, actually, this is for any of the kids that want to answer. Just real quick, you sort of inadvertently reminded me of a conversation I had during one of our teen talks. And, you know, a lot of what I'm hearing today, like whether phones are in school or they're not in school, a lot of this ties back to the technology itself and the just addiction of being on these apps. And so question I have real quick for you guys. So I heard the other day from a teenager, they told me the term bed rot. Do you guys know what that means? Mm-hmm. Can you explain do you know what that means?
I do.
Oh, you do? Really? Oh, well, let's pretend there's people here that don't. What is bed rot? Explain that to me, anyone.
You're literally laying in bed on social media for like multiple hours, just sitting there doing nothing but on social media.
And well, do you think that's good?
No, not at all.
And so when people do that, like, I mean, aren't there also, I don't know, like, what is it, snap streaks and right? Yeah. And are you guys like really motivated by those streaks and like making sure, like, can you explain that to me a little bit?
I mean, some people are. Like, some people are really into it. I think as you get older, you kind of detach from that. It's like, it starts from a really young age. I remember in middle school, people were like obsessed with their snap streaks. It's like, how often are you on Snapchat? What's your snap score? But yeah, I think the bed rotting thing is just like awful.
So real quick, and this will probably trigger a couple questions from the governor. I have no doubt your answer, but like, if you guys were older and you had children, and you're aware of the internet and what you all know about it, what are things that you would want to see done with your knowledge to protect your children or younger brothers and sisters?
So I would like to speak on that. So basically my parents growing up, like, they didn't really give me like any phones or any devices until I was in a certain grade. So I got it like summer of 8th grade, so like beginning of 9th grade, just for like safety reasons, and also because I take care of my mom like for medical reasons and all. So I just got it for that. And then they also like put restrictions on like when I get the apps. Like, you know, for Instagram, I got it last year when I was like of a certain age to know like, you know, how to like not get into the loophole. So like they want me, like they had restrictions on like apps so that first I like learn how to like understand the schoolwork and like focus on school first, and then once I get into like, you know, habit of it, like social media is just to like connect to people, but like there needs to be like restrictions on it. So like I got it a little later, and I think if I were to have kids, I would definitely do something similar. Like I would give them like an Apple Watch or something for like safety reasons, but then I would not let them have like social media until a little later when they're like a little more mature for that.
That's what we did with our kids. We let them get a phone once they were traveling to school, but they weren't allowed to get social media till later, I think 16. And then we didn't let them post anything until after they turned 18. And our daughter was really upset with us about that. But then when she turned 18, actually probably a couple years after that, when she was in college, she thanked us for that. She thought it made her grow up in a healthier way. It didn't feel that way while she was growing up. She let us, Doc?
And I think I want to chime in, share my experience that while most parents are generally aware that their children are connected to social media like Instagram or TikTok, most of the young people I talk to, their parents have no idea how much time they spend engaging with the chat bots. So if they're using, you know, Grok or Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, I think the parents know that they are on Instagram, but I'm not sure that parents are always aware of the amount of time that they spend engaging the companion bots. And then with that, the other thing as we think about, you know, earlier I mentioned how essential it is that we have social connection. It is also so essential that we have sufficient sleep. And the other issue that I think is a real threat to mental health of young people is that this bed rot and the doom scrolling also interferes with sleep. And so so many young people that I work with, like they're going to bed at 2 or 3 or 4 and then waking up at 6 or 7. And just think of all of the kind of cognitive consequences, the learning consequences, and the overall mental health consequences of losing sleep. So I think those two issues, the fact that I think, parents are aware that kids are using social media. I'm not sure that parents are as aware of how much time kids spend engaging these bots.
Mr. Secretary, you were going to ask something before. I apologize.
I think I was just curious. You know, I wanted to follow up on the thread we were talking about in terms of learning about AI and teaching the students about AI. This is mostly for the students and perhaps the parents. Are your teachers doing anything along the lines of teaching you about the seriousness of AI? And is it coming up in any way in your curriculum?
I would like to comment on that question. So right now, in terms of like our teachers or my personal experience of like what we're learning about AI from like our educators, is they're teaching us how AI is like now and how it's gonna like, you know, work in education. Not particularly like outside of education. For example, if it's like an English class setting, my teacher would maybe sometimes talk about how we're going to get over like the AI protocols in that particular class. But I don't think there's been like an instance in school where it's like a talk or some sort of conversation about like, you know, the other dangers that AI has. And like the toolkit, I think that's like an amazing idea. And maybe having that as like an assembly or like a conference with like students and parents about, you know, the other dangers of AI outside of school and inside of school would be really helpful, because one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of the news that kids or my friends learn, they're getting it from like social media or it's like online, or they're self-learning. They aren't really getting the talk about like the dangers of AI from like an adult figure, so they're not understanding like the severity of this. Or I know we were talking about like the chatbots and all of that, and I did like a summer program where I learned about like, you know, how bots are built and chatbots are built, and how like from like that technical aspect can understand, you know, that's just like data, but to like someone else who doesn't understand like, you know, how these bots actually work, or like, you know, the bot can't see who the person is across the screen, like it doesn't know their race or gender, their culture, so it's just like, you know, it's just a bot and it's just replying based on like a database that it has, so it's not something that is reliable. But I don't think kids realize that. And I know, Dr. Harrison, you were like talking about this before, so maybe like, you know, teachers explaining about the dangers of this and, you know, how to like properly regulate it, or having like an authority figure talk about it rather than just us having to self-learn it would be very helpful.
Speaking of authority figures talking about it, and you will not upset me or the general here, if you were being talked to about this, your governor showed up, your attorney general showed up, your school counselor showed up, your teacher showed up, your principal showed up. Who's going to be the most compelling? Like, who's going to have the most impact on how you're thinking about this? There's no right or wrong answer, and we will not be offended if you don't pick us. I'm assuming you will not pick us. It's okay.
I can speak for parents.
Yeah.
I think that for parents, it's the most helpful to have the criminal side, right? We want to know what are the consequences of using these tools.
Okay.
I also think that visuals are really important. So we keep talking about AI and bots and all these things, and it feels very abstract. And so, like, when you see it as a mom, when you read these texts and conversations, or you see what these bots are saying back, is where it just like is such a gut punch, and it helps you to really understand the real danger. And same with the deepfake apps. And as a parent, I kind of want to know, like, how are kids getting these apps? Like, is it just, are they targeting you on TikTok? Are they advertising to you? Like, is it your friend told you about it, word of mouth? Is it a teacher told you, use this, AI bot for schoolwork? Like, how do we get there?
Okay.
Is kind of my question.
So if you had like a parents' night at school, and say the principal was there with the school counselor and some combination of maybe the local police chief or the local DA or the AG or someone from his office, that would be helpful.
Yeah, for me, for sure. I think that having a high schooler, it exposed us to the fear of all of these kids, of their scholarships, their college applications, like recruiting, things like that. Like, are these recruiters Googling your name? Are they looking for this information?
Yeah.
If you were the offender and you made a mistake, like, is your life over? So knowing those things as parents, that, kids are going to make mistakes, and we have to help guide them through that so that this isn't a life-ending sentence. But knowing as a parent, what different levels that is and what that looks like, I think from the college perspective for the high school kids is really important.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had met with this woman. She's like the world-renowned expert in this deep fake, and I think as part of the advocacy. And one of the interesting things was when Act 125 and some of these acts that have been passed to criminalize this behavior, it was never imagined that this would be a minor on minor crime.
Yeah.
And so I think the question is, to Morgan's point, is both from a victim-centered perspective, but also from a perpetrator perspective, how we're handling this, how we're educating kids, and what guardrails that we can put in place from at 18 and up, if you can download the app, or going after the tech companies. But certainly, to your point, when this first happened back in December, the first thing we asked for was a community event. Let's get the principal, the superintendent, the chief of police, the prosecutor, some expert on criminology, so that everyone can be educated in what this is, how it works, and what the impacts are. But the schools just have a lot of resistance to that. I don't know why the schools just want to bury their head in the sand. They want nothing to do with this. And the more we ask for it, the more they resist. So if there's anything that can be done from a state legislative perspective or an enforcement Department of Education, I would fully support that.
Yeah, and to that point, this isn't a Radnor issue. Like, the fact that we're all here in all these different districts, so like statewide guidance and statewide involvement, I think would be hugely important as a parent to realize this isn't a Radnor thing. I need to kind of pay attention.
I know it's not a Radnor thing. I'm hearing you. Dr. Bell, you should respond to that. Maybe you don't have to respond on behalf of your school. I'm letting you off the hook, but you're the expert here in school district issues. Go ahead.
I'll just speak in terms of original thought and writing, like, say you have an English assignment or a history assignment, or you're writing an essay for a college application. Nothing's ever going to replace what's in your head, your original thoughts, your experiences. Anything that makes you you, AI is not going to be able to replace that. So my advice when it's time to write those applications or do that assignment, you can use AI as maybe a guide to get some tools to help you, but you shouldn't have it write for you ever, because there's a couple different things. They'll be able to tell, teachers, college admissions counselors will be able to tell right away if it's written by AI. And some of the ways they use really, the language might not sound like you. It might sound like more robotic. Phrases repeat, and they might repeat a couple times. And there's also, I guess, other AI that can check to make sure what you're submitting isn't written by AI. So I wouldn't ever recommend that you use AI other than maybe a guide. Like, did I write this right? Is the spelling and the grammar correct? Colleges want to see what's in your head and what led you to apply to that school. And your teachers definitely want to hear your original thought to make sure you're understanding the material that they're presenting.
But why aren't the schools leading conversations on deep fake AI? I mean, we all understand write your own stuff, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's been the huge, we were victimized more by the school than this kid that made a video. And so what is it that the schools can do, and why are they not wanting to curate a positive conversation around the consequences and actions of students that are breaking the law?
I don't know if I can answer on.
No, but I think that's, I'll let you off the hook here. I think that's a really fair critique. And I think one of my takeaways from this is our Pennsylvania Department of Education has to get far more aggressive with school districts to build up not just a curriculum for students, but really for parents.
And teachers.
And of course, teachers to be able to understand these issues a bit better and have the protocols in place should there be, you know, an urgent moment or an urgent event like what Radnor's experienced and other school districts have experienced as well. So I hear that loud and clear. Rosie, who's got a 3-year-old and a newborn and is going to be dealing with this at some point, keeps telling me we're way over time. I apologize. But I want to just quick.
Is that why she's dancing over there?
Yeah, she's like, come on. Quick lightning round. Anything the General Secretary need to be thinking about, the rep, before we walk out of here that we didn't cover that you wanted us to know? Hannah, you're itching to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to go back to the question about who would be most impactful to hear it from, and like adding to the whole teachers and parents conversation. People want to hear it from people who are in their lives. Like students want to hear it. They don't want to hear it like from a detached conversation. Last year, my school district did an AI training, but it was very detached. It was the teachers didn't know what it was. It just felt like it was very much like just distributed from administration to check a box. That I think people want to have a conversation. They experience it in their lives. They want to see how, like, if I'm using this to write my essay, what skills am I missing? They don't like recognize that they're losing that opportunity, that just like having those conversations, learning to have them in homes, learning to have them in the classroom, I think that is where you can start.
Who would that be? What kind of person?
That would be like your parent or your teacher or like the person who is in your life who can see that. And then there's also like the criminalized side where like people need to take it seriously, and I do think that needs to be a big part of it.
Okay. But as Dorfman here said, but we also want to hear from a prosecutor or someone in police or what have you. Would you have an objection to that? Would that be helpful, or it's just less important to you, maybe more important to a parent? What do you think?
I think it needs to come from both. I think it just needs to be a little bit less stigmatized.
Okay.
I think, but obviously that's not something you can do as governor. But I think there's so such, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
It's all right.
But I think it just needs to be a conversation that people keep having, and like just like it's in our lives. So I'm glad you're having this.
Thank you.
I'd like to give a quick plug for school counselors. Like, no matter what school or what district you're in, their school counselors are trained professionals, and if they don't have the answer, they'll help you find the answer. So whether it's your school counselor, your school social worker, if you're lucky to have a crisis counselor, I would start with them. And if not them, a trusted adult, like the elementary counselor. If you had a great experience with them, use them as well. But there are people in every building that can help you, and school counselors are usually at the forefront of that.
Any other quick final comments here?
I think I'll jump in to say that I'm a clinician, and so I'm generally working with individuals and with families. And even as a clinician, I think looking for the research to guide, like, how do we approach this? This thing is happening so fast, and I think it's also important that we are doing good research to fully understand the impact, the mental health, the cognitive impacts, the social impacts of this, because it's happening so quickly, and so the research doesn't always catch up.
Agreed. All right, Rep, General, and then I'll close. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent on us as, legislators to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and especially our children. And so we are attempting to just do that. When we talked about companion AI, there's really no need for companion AI for minors. They'll live without it. But the dangers that we've seen, so why should we throw it on them to be responsible when they're not even adults? So we should just preclude it. That's something that I'm working on with HB 2215 and some of my other colleagues. So look for that. Call your representatives. demand action. This is a very important issue. It's not going to go away, and it could change the trajectory of humankind. So we do have to get ahead of it and get our arms around it.
Thanks, Rep.
I'll be quick. I want to just say that, to the parents in here whose children were victimized, from speaking as a chief law enforcement officer, I'm sorry that this happened to you. I'm sorry that this happened to your family. I'm sorry for the trauma that I know that your children are experiencing and will continue to experience. And that's something that we take very, very seriously. I take it very seriously. My office does. And so, we will process everything that we've heard today. Our offices speak literally every day on a gazillion different issues. And so we're going to make sure that this wasn't just notes on a pad, that it results in action. And you young people, you guys are awesome. I just want to say, you're like, 1,000 times smarter than I was when I was your age. I promise you. So you guys, amazing, bright, wonderful futures, and thank you for being fantastic. That's it.
Well, I echo the sentiments of the general. They may be smarter than both of us now, not just when we were kids. It's really impressive. It is hard to show up at a table like this. It's even harder to show up at a table like this and speak really passionately and personally as you have. So I truly want to say thank you and echo the comments of the general. To the professionals who are here, I want to say thank you for helping us gain a greater understanding. And to the parents who, have struggled with this as I struggle with it as a parent, I want to say thanks for sharing, the personal side of this. We have a lot of work to do, and what is clear to me is we've got to sort of come at this from a multitude of ways. We need our schools to be far more engaged with our students and with our parents and our teachers. And we're going to give some thought to how to do that through the Pennsylvania Department of Education to try and push toward, some universal approach that then gets customized district by district. So that's with us. That's something we're going to work on. Second, I think we need both a legislative and a regulatory response to this. Representative Pielli talked about some of the legislation they're working on. I've been clear about what I would sign into law, and we're going to work through that. Also, from a regulatory perspective, I mentioned at the top, we think we have some regulatory tools on these AI chatbots, particularly those that are holding themselves out as medical professionals. So we're going to follow up on that. I think third, there's like a prosecutor police angle to this. Morgan, I thought your comments before as a parent sort of being directed that way were striking. I think the school, frankly, should have been able to do more to help you initially. But there has to be a law enforcement piece of this, and ideally in a proactive way. And so I won't speak for the general, but I think you heard that as well, and we're going to talk about how best to do that. And then finally, I guess I would say I hope this conversation doesn't end here. I want to invite all of you, particularly our students, to stay in touch with me. I'd also ask, I don't know if I'm allowed to give you homework or not, but if you could take a look at our AI toolkit and frankly, tell us what's good on there and also tell us what's not good, like what we need to maybe take out or what we need to add. I'm going to give you my number. You can text me directly, okay? I know, you're looking like it's great. Write it down. Okay, it's 717. I'm really giving my number. You ready? Do you have a phone? No? Here. Morgan will write it down. 717-788-8990. You can text me. I'd love it if you would text me your thoughts on how we can fix or how we can update that. The press can't have that number, by the way. How we can update that toolkit. And I really want your feedback on this. And by the way, I don't mind if you share it with your friends and ask them what it is. Andrew, I'm telling all your friends you voted for the Bell to Bell. I don't care what. Yeah. But sincerely, it is super helpful for me, my secretary, to be able to do this work, with your input. And your input has been really, really important for us today. So thank you. To be continued. Text me directly. This is very, very helpful. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.